Hello, everyone. What's up? Hello. Please take your seats, put down your internet phones, and get ready, because I am going to give a talk about social media and public goods, how we can combine the two. So I'm Kevin Owocki. I am mostly known as the founder of Gitcoin, and this is a talk about social media and the race to the bottom of the brainstem. What are the ways in which we can use crypto in order to create more healthy social media environments? So the primary idea behind this talk is an idea that social media, as employed on the largest networks out there like Twitter and Facebook and TikTok, are using superpowered AIs in order to engineer all of us to be more profitable. And we spend several hours per day on social media. In order to be more profitable, the existing Web 2 economy optimizes for attention. It's an attention economy. The more attention we give to our social media platforms, the more profitable we are to them. In order to maximize attention, there's a race to the bottom of the brainstem in which we're being engineered to be more outraged, more divisive, more argumentative, because that creates more time on site, and more time on site creates more attention and more profit. So we're being engineered to maximize our more visceral emotions, things like rage and fear, dopamine rushes that are in our information commons being upregulated by the social media platforms, not because they're what's good for us or what's good for the public good, but because they are the most profitable. In a world in which we all spend several hours per day on social media, this materially changes society. Talk about a loss of sovereignty. We talk a lot about being unbanked in this space and being censored, and I think that all those things are true. But when it comes to the sovereignty of our attention and having it pulled out of us by these superpowered AIs, I think that that's a real loss of sovereignty in a different way. There's this parable about two fish who are in water, and one of the fish says to the other one, "What's water?" And I think that we are all fish in water, especially this guy in the front row who's not paying attention to my presentation. You're a fish in water, sir. We are in a race to the bottom of the brainstem. The brain has evolved over millions of years. The reptilian brain is our instinctual brain, our fight or flight responses, and the thing that powered our evolution back in the savannah. Then the limbic brain allowed us to have emotions and feelings in relationships with each other. And then our neocortex, our rational or thinking brain, are the ones that we're hopefully using at Ethcc when we were talking about cryptoeconomic protocols. There is a superpowered AI optimizing for more attention and more profit. And the AI has figured out, because it has the data set of millions of people's attention, that if it optimizes for our reptilian brain, if it can get to the bottom of the brainstem, then it's going to be able to get more profit. And these companies have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders in order to engineer more and more profit. And so there's an AI that's optimizing for more attention, more profit, and that's what's the race to the bottom of the brainstem. This is not my idea. This is an idea that's been passed around the intellectual dark web for years. Daniel Schmachtenberger talks about it. Jordan Hall talks about it. I'm just someone who wants to do something about it. So it's not just me and you who are being engineered to the bottom of the brainstem, but it's content creators too, who are playing this game where instead of creating things that appeal to our rational or thinking brain, are appealing to our fight or flight response. And they're creating an economy in which content creators are creating content that optimizes for attention also, and they're rewarded by the algorithm when they create content that races to the bottom of the brainstem. They get more profit from the AIs when they do that. And the externality of all of these things is a cycle of public bads. It's more division, it's more hate, it's more fear, it's more arguments online. These AIs are not optimizing for what's good for our well-being. They're optimizing for more attention in the attention economy and more profit. And it creates this reflexive cycle that consumes the substrate of democracy and public discourse that our society relies upon. We're being engineered for more profit. We're being engineered for more visceral outrage, more fear, and more division because it's more profitable. This has externalities for our democracy and for our public discourse and the candidates for which we choose for public policy and our offices. It has externalities for the future of democracy and the future of society because information as a public good is upstream from all other public goods. One of the other ideas that's been floating around this idea of the race to the bottom of the brainstem is this idea of mimetic tribes. We all exist within the Ethereum mimetic tribe, and we follow memes like ultrasound money and programmable money. And I think it's important to realize that if we're going to build the substrate for the next generation economy, then we have to recognize that there's other mimetic tribes out there that have their own other telos. So climate advocates want to stop climate change. Black Lives Matter want justice for racialized people. Me Too wants sexual harassment to end. So there's all these different mimetic tribes that exist out there, and they all have different telos, different ultimate objectives that they want to reach. But the problem is that the fault lines between tribes are complete landmines right now because we're fish in water. We are in an attention economy that optimizes for profit and division over achieving our telos. And because of this, social media cannot hold power. In social media, modern social media is really good at tearing down power, but it's not good at building movements that can actually hold power. And I think that that needs to change if our generation is going to take power back from the boomers and achieve our telos, achieve our ultimate power. What if we could build algorithms that build cooperation across social distance? So this idea of social distance, if you and I come from the same background and have the same priors, then we have low social distance from each other. But I'm an American in France and I'm speaking to a diverse audience of people from all over the world. What if we could build cooperation across social distance in which we have positive sum interactions between our mimetic tribes instead of only within our mimetic tribes? And the stakes couldn't be higher. Right now in our information environment, we're being optimized for maximal profit and the world is on fire. We're being optimized for maximal attention, as if that was what's good for the public good. We're being optimized and extracted from by our information environment when we have things like pandemics to deal with, or floods in Pakistan, or earthquakes in Turkey. Wouldn't it be great if we could use our social media environments and our internet of finance in order to solve some of these problems, instead of just being triggered all the time? I think that there's a different way, and I think that with Ethereum and programmable money, we can program our values into our money. So in what ways could we break this system? Could we break the hold of the AI on our attention, realize that we're a fish in water, and build a better information economy for public goods, because that's upstream from all other public goods? What if we could reverse this cycle in which the superpowered AI is racing from the top of the brainstem to the bottom of the brainstem and taking all of us with it, externalizing these public bads, this fear and outrage and division between mimetic tribes? What if we could reverse the cycle, race to the top of the brainstem, and build a social media that is oriented around the public good, which is what we should be talking about in our town squares? If our existing social media environment is like the information equivalent of high fructose corn syrup and candy, what are the ways in which we could introduce some whole grains and some vegetables into our information environment? All right, it's got a little bit less popular talking about eating healthy. We can still eat candy when we want to, but what if we had the option to eat healthy also? What kind of environment would that create? Like I said at the start of the talk, I'm known as the founder of Gitcoin. Gitcoin is a crowdfunding platform that's done $50 million worth of traction for the public good and fundraising for the public good. It's built on top of a mechanism called quadratic funding, which is invented by Vitalik Buterin, Zoe Hitzig, and Glenn Weil. So far, we've used this algorithm in order to create $50 million towards public goods, mostly in the Ethereum space, but also doing things like helping to fund climate projects and decentralized science and things of that nature. So in 2020, I started playing around with this idea of what if we built a quadratic funding powered social network? I took the Gitcoin platform, which was centralized at that time. We didn't have customer support, and I started running quadratic funding rounds on our social media feed on the Gitcoin town square, which is basically like a Twitter type algorithm. And what I saw was that people started to answer each other's questions and help each other use the platform, figure out quirks with the platform, and they would get tip rewards in exchange for doing that. So we basically took the tip button and we replaced it on the Gitcoin social network with a micro tip button. which I thought would be cool because, we're all just chasing dopamine rushes with our likes that we send each other. And what if we could send tips to each other and actually financially value each other's contributions? Turns out no one wants to send a 30-cent micro tip, and no one wants to receive a 30-cent micro tip. When you get a 30-cent micro tip, all you're getting is a taxable event, which is more of a headache than anything. But what if we augmented those micro tips with quadratic funding? So basically, you're sending someone a 30-cent micro tip to say thank you for providing something of value to me. And tips are a better measure of what provides value to people than likes, which are just like a measure of what creates dopamine rushes. And what if we actually sent tips to each other and we only sent 30 cents and there was a subsidy for the people who are contributing to the public good to receive $10 on a 30-cent micro tip, which is what quadratic funding is really good at. It's really good at amplifying the contributions of people who are doing public goods as measured by their peers. So we built this quadratic funding social network, and it worked really well in the Gitcoin 1.0 days. But then I got busy with spinning out a consensus and launching a DAO and rewriting the legal and governance and product foundations of Gitcoin. And 2 years later, we have Allo Protocol, which is short for the Allocation Protocol, is a protocolized version of quadratic funding. And I am just so proud that we have completely rewritten the stack of Gitcoin, all the way from legal to governance to product and technology. And we now have Allocation Protocol through which we can compose quadratic funding protocols, but really any other allocation strategy like retroactive public goods funding, conviction voting, quadratic voting, direct grants. We're going to speed run the capital allocation strategies that are available in the space with Allo Protocol. So what if we built a social network that was built around quadratic funding as a primitive for upregulating the content that was a public good for the community as opposed to just things that create a dopamine rush? Can we create a flywheel in which we export more public goods to the community? We reward creators who are contributing to the public good, and creating a flywheel in which our information environment actually supports the substrate upon which democracy relies, and that our public goods substrates that our public goods are supported by a democratic environment. So if we're successful in this vision, then your job, your social media habit could become your job. You could just work for the public good, and you could get rewarded for working on the public good, and I'm really excited about that. We could build a more high-fidelity information environment that feels a little bit more like eating your vegetables and eating healthy and creating a healthy organism by doing so. So I'm really excited about this vision, and in order to further articulate this vision, I would like to invite a friend up on stage. Please join me in welcoming Stani from Lenzin, the Aave ecosystem. Welcome, Stani. Hello, welcome.
Thank you, Kevin. I have a present for you.
Thank you so much. Do you want to join me over here?
Yeah.
Okay. So Stani, you and I have been talking about an integration between Gitcoin and Lens for quite some time at this point. And I guess the culmination of that has been this quadraticlenster.com that we built. And so basically at quadraticlenster.xyz, you can go to this website and you can post about hashtag Ethcc. And there's a 10K matching pool up there for anyone who is talking about Ethcc. Yeah. All right. This whole thing was just a long, slow pitch for quadratic funding, and here we are. All right, so
always been.
Yeah, always has been. Okay, so this is a test post that will be eligible for quadratic tips because it contains the hashtag Ethcc. And basically, the way the interface works is that you can tip that post with 0.0003 Matic, and that estimated matching for that tip will be 23 Matic, which is something like 1,000x, 10,000x matching for doing that tip. And the whole idea behind quadratic funding is that the higher the matching, the more people support that post, the higher the matching is. And this is supposed to be, according to Vitalik and Glenn Weil and the quadratic funding algorithm, this is supposed to upregulate public goods that the crowd actually cares about. And the more tips you get on one post, the more the matching pool will be. So the idea is that we're upregulating social media, or public goods on social media. And that's what I'm really excited about jamming with you on here. So, so what do you think?
I think it's very cool. And something that's very fascinating is that everything here is basically built on open technologies. So basically you have the quadratic funding. The user interface is a fork of Lenster, a community-built interface for the Lens protocol. And for me, what is very fascinating is that being able to do quadratic funding where the actual social behavior is, which we like to call as the digital town squares. So the places we spend a lot of time and engage with other users, people in the internet, I think that's the place to actually align incentives with the community. And I think we saw with Reddit, for example, that how important the community alignment is and how much effort these sub-communities have brought to build value around what are their beliefs and their ecosystem. And being able to do that and have that way of tipping with quadratic funding, you can actually align those incentives with different communities. So I think this is really a big step for getting actually more quadratic funding into everyday usage within the bigger Ethereum ecosystem.
Yeah, well, I'm just so thankful to you for providing an open social media platform through which we can upregulate public goods. We looked at trying to do this on Twitter and Facebook, and because they're not open technologies, there was no way to do that. And so the fact that Lens is open and that we could combine Gitcoin's allocation protocol with Lens was, I think, a big step. And the opportunity that I saw was that everyone takes 15 or 20 minutes in order to support public goods on Gitcoin every quarter, but we all spend several hours per day on social media. What if it could just be a part of what we do is to reward each other with micro tips, and then creators can move towards receiving those micro tips and maybe even replacing their income with them. And so it really allowed us to achieve our vision, the fact that you had open technologies, and I'm just really excited about embedding public goods funding into our digital town squares.
And I think down the line, what you mentioned about new ways of sharing value, I think what is fascinating is that you could change the way we actually monetize these days on social media. Instead of rewarding the attention and charging for ads, you can actually create new ways of producing valuable content. And content is not just things what we say out loud, they're actually artifacts that we create of culture that exist on the internet. And because decentralized technologies, we can actually store them over time. So it's regardless if these businesses or brands exist in the future. And I think that's a very powerful way to share value.
Yeah, totally. I mean, one of my favorite hot takes on Web3 is unpopular right now. Crypto is unpopular right now, and I think in some ways we deserve that with SBF and 3AC and stuff. And one of my favorite sarcastic hot takes on where we are in crypto right now is yeah, Web3 is all a scam, but give me all your likes and retweets. That's the real stuff, which is a sardonic way of pointing out that hey, we should actually be rewarding our creators and our cultural creators with actual monetary benefits for their creation, instead of just rewarding them with more attention, unwinding the attention economy in this race towards the bottom of the brainstem and upregulating the public goods is what I'm really excited about. And so my vision is basically, we're going to see if people care about this. Please go to quadraticlenster.xyz, post about Ethcc, tip each other, reward the creators at Ethcc this year, and we'll pay out a 10K matching pool for this. And that's a demo. If you all care about public goods funding in the town square, what I would really like is whenever there's a quadratic funding round on Gitcoin, or there's a retroactive public goods funding round on Optimism, or Giveth, who's launching quadratic funding. What's up, Griff? Whenever there's a quadratic funding round on any of those platforms, what if we also upregulated on social media the people who are promoting these ideas and promoting these platforms as a sidecar to those rounds? So you can have public goods funding embedded into more and more of our online spaces with the power of Quadratic Lenster in this integration. So I'm excited about that vision.
I would love to see creators actually using this as a way to create interesting content, and that is very valuable, and also being rewarded for that. So super excited.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm told that we only have a couple more minutes left, so I'll just ask you a totally open-ended question before we break. Is there anything I didn't ask that you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, basically, like how developers could benefit from quadratic funding.
Yeah. So basically, there is a Allo protocol exists right now, and I promised the Gitcoin folks that I wouldn't say too much about it because they haven't even technically announced it yet. But the idea is that people who are building on top of Allo protocol can now embed quadratic funding or retroactive public goods funding or quadratic voting into any of their apps. And we're going to be running quadratic funding rounds probably for the people who are building more quadratic funding. It's going to be this fractal outward force of more public goods funding into the world. And so that's the vision, build on top of Allo protocol, allo.gitcoin.co, if you want to embed quadratic funding into your app. All right, let's do it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stani.